What's up everyone, Chance here with Real Sim Gear. In this video, we're gonna be covering what's in the box when you order a GNS430 and a GNS530, and then we're going to take it over to the computer and I'm gonna show you how to set up both of them, as the contents and the setup is pretty much the same. Now, before we unbox each of these, I quickly wanna cover some optional accessories that you might wanna pick up when ordering any of our avionics. So the first question you wanna ask is, what's your home simulator setup going to look like? And so we have these stands for our avionics. You can get something like a single 430 stand, or let's say you're getting both the 430 and the 530, you can stack them with a 430 530 stand, and so they're right on top of each other. Or you can pick up something like this that you're going to see in a lot of general aviation airplanes. You're going to have an audio panel, a couple different GPSs. So in this case, we got a 650 spot and a 430 spot, and then something for an autopilot. So this avionics stack right here is going to help you prepare for a multitude of different airplanes. Now, besides picking up one of our stands, you might want to consider picking up something like our yoke top package, which has a whole side for your avionics stack, and you can choose which stack you want on your yoke top package. And on the left side, you have a spot for your yoke, as well as some glass instrumentation like dual G5s or a G500. And so that mostly covers your mounting options. Now, as far as connecting it to your computer, let's say you have a graphics card that doesn't have a ton of HDMI ports on it. So on the back of your PC, these HDMI ports. If you don't have a lot of extra, let's say you already have a bunch of monitors like I do, you can pick up this dual HDMI to USB 3.0 adapter, and that's gonna allow you to plug in two pieces of, let's say, Real Sim Gear avionics into this part of the adapter, and then it'll just take up one USB port rather than two full HDMI ports. Okay, and then let's say that you're running out of USB ports on your computer. You can pick up one of these multi-port hubs, and so that you can get either 7 extra ports or 10 extra ports on your PC. Now, the 7-port hub is a little bit different than the 10-port hub in that all the connections are on the front. So the power is going to come out of the front, and the USB Type B to Type A cable is going to come out of the front. Whereas the 10-port hub has the power and the USB Type B to A cable coming out of the back, which I really prefer the cables coming out of the back as much as possible to mitigate any cables coming out on the front of my desk as much as I can. So not only is it nice to give you extra ports if you don't have a lot of USB ports on your PC, but it's also really nice to have easy access to the ports, especially if you're someone like me who mounts their PC underneath their desk, like with this mount right here. So that about covers the optional accessories when you pick up basically any avionics from us. And so let's go ahead and unbox the 430 and then the 530. And then, like I said, we'll take it over to the PC and I'll show you how to set both of them up. Okay, so let's open this up. So when you first get into it, you're gonna get this quick start checklist. I'm basically gonna sum all this up for you in this video, so you don't really have to worry about that if you're watching this video. And then we'll take out this first piece of foam. So here is your GNS430, identical to the real airplane. And then here are the connections on the back. And so it's just a single HDMI port and a single USB Type B input. And then the other side is going to be a Type A, which goes into your PC. So set this off to the side. Okay, next you're just gonna have two extra things in here. You're gonna get a USB Type B to Type A cable. This is gonna go in the back of your GNS430, and then this is gonna go to your PC, which I'll show you how to do all the physical connections here in a little bit. And then included with every purchase are the mounting screws. In case you did pick up one of our stands, then these are the screws to mount it. And so that's basically it. So make sure when you purchase, you get the cable, the screws, and then obviously the product itself. Okay, next up we have the GNS530, and this is gonna be pretty similar to the 430, just a slight difference. So again, you have your quick start checklist. I'm gonna sum up all of this for you in this video, but here is a textual format for you as well. Remove this piece of styrofoam. And then here is the GNS530, basically the larger version of the 430. Okay, and then on the back here, you're gonna have some slightly different connections. You're gonna have your HDMI port. You're gonna have your power supply. Since this is a little bit bigger screen, it needs just a little bit extra juice. You're gonna have to plug this into your wall or a power strip. You're gonna have some extra USB 2.0 ports in case you wanted to daisy chain off of this. So you could technically plug your 430 into this. Now, if you are running into any issues and you are daisy chaining like this, I recommend plugging directly into your PC or at least into one of the 7-port or 10-port hubs and see if that fixes your issue. And then you're gonna have the USB Type B port, which is going to plug directly into your PC. Okay, and then you're gonna get the power supply. So this is gonna go into your wall, and then this is going to go into the back of the 430. Then you're gonna get another USB Type B to Type A cable. This is gonna go again into your 530, and then this part is gonna go into your PC. And then finally, you're gonna get some mounting screws in case you picked up one of our stands. Okay, that is what you get when you order the GNS430 and the GNS530. Now we're gonna head over to the computer and we're gonna set both of them up. Okay, now that we have unboxed the GNS430 and the GNS530, it's time to set it up on our PC with X-Plane. Now, I've already went ahead and mounted the 430 and the 530 onto this stand, as well as the GMA350 audio panel, since I'm gonna be using this for that setup video. But if you haven't mounted it onto your stands yet, if you picked one up, that process is very straightforward. You are gonna need some scissors to cut up the rubber feet to place them on the bottom of the stand so you don't scratch up your desk, as well as a small screwdriver to put in the screws. But once you have them on the stands, it's time to set it up on the PC. And that is going to take 7 super quick, super easy steps. I know 7 steps sounds like a lot, but I have made chapters for this video. So if you hover your mouse over the progress bar, it's going to be easier for you to rewind and jump to a particular chapter. However, I do recommend just going in the exact same order that I'm showing you here. If you jump around too much, it might not work by the time you get to loading up into X-Plane. So once you have that all set up on your stands, it's time for step 1, which is to make the physical connections. But once you have everything plugged into a particular piece of avionics, if you see the Windows screen pop up right here, then you've probably done it right. If you plugged everything in and you still don't see this screen, maybe double check that all the connections are plugged in all the way, or triple check that everything's plugged into your PC the correct way. Okay, so we have quite a few connections on the back of the GNS530 and the GNS430. And so to start, I'm gonna connect both of these USB type B to A cables. And so I have 2 cables, one for each. One connection is gonna go here, another connection is gonna go there, and then I'm gonna plug both of them into my 10-port hub, which I have mounted on top of my desk with some command strips. Okay, now that I have all of the USB type B to A cables going from the back of the avionics into my 10-port hub, I'm going to now connect my HDMI cables. And like I said, if you don't have a lot of HDMI ports on the back of your PC, you could pick yourself up one of these dual HDMI to USB 3.0 adapters. However, I would not recommend going from this adapter into a 10-port hub, as you want to minimize the amount of connections going from the hardware to your PC. So just make sure if you're using this dual HDMI to USB adapter, it's going directly into your PC. Okay, now that I have the HDMI cables going into that adapter, which is plugged into the back of my PC, now I'm going to do the final step, which is to plug in the power for the 530 into the wall. Okay, that's all the physical connections. Like I said before, these 2 USB ports right here can be used to daisy chain. So you can just take this USB type B and run the A side into one of these ports. You can do that with the 430 as well. However, I'm plugging them directly into my 10-port hub because I just want the least amount of connections, the least amount of interference going from the avionics to the PC. You're just going to run into less issues that way. And so if you are using a hub, that's how I definitely recommend doing it. If you are running into any issues, maybe try not daisy chaining, try going directly into the PC and see if that helps. Okay, now that you've made the physical connections, you should be seeing the Windows screen or some blank screen here on your RealSim Gear hardware, anything with the screen, as essentially they are another monitor in a very basic sense. And so given that they're another monitor, we need to tell Windows where these monitors are so we can easily configure them once we're in X-Plane. So step 2 is to configure the display settings, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So on your main screen, just go ahead and right click anywhere and then go ahead and scroll down to display settings. We're gonna click on that. That's going to open up something that looks like this. Now I have 3 main monitors. I have my ultra wide here in the bottom. I have a 32-inch above that. And then I have this vertical screen over here. Now the RealSim Gear hardware is this 4 and 5. And if you don't know which is which, you don't know where your display settings are, you can hit this identify button, and that's going to populate a number on every single screen so you know which monitor is which. It may not be in the order that you think it is. Now I'm only going to use monitor 2 as my main monitor, this big 32-inch above my ultra wide. I'm only going to use this top one as my full screen simulator monitor. The other ones I'm just not going to use. And so the standard that we use for placing all the RealSim Gear hardware is to the bottom right of your full screen simulator, of your main monitor. So I'm just going to click on this and I'm going to drag it down and drop it right there. And then I'll do the same thing with this other one right here. And now you can order them how you like. Let's see if I can. Yes, so monitor 4 is my 530, and then the 430 is monitor 5. That makes sense to me. If you decide to place them somewhere else, I don't even want to tell you about this, but if you do decide to place them somewhere else, just make sure you leave a little bit of room. See how this 2 and 4 is flush at the top? We're not going to be able to get rid of the white bar like a tab usually has on any Chrome browser or whatever to go away. And so it's always going to be on that screen. So in order to get rid of that dreaded white bar, let's leave some room, or let's just do it this way. Place it to the bottom right of your main monitor. That's going to leave us room to get rid of that white bar, okay? And now I'm going to click apply, and that's done. Now I've told Windows where these monitors are, where they're going to exist, and now it's time to move on to step 3, which is just to change some Windows settings. That's going to make our lives a little bit easier. So keeping the same tab open, I'm just going to click on System. That's going to bring me back to this main window here, and I'm going to click on Multitasking. And so what I want to turn off right here is Snap Windows. And essentially what that is that if I drag my window or whatever tab I'm working on, it's going to full screen it or take it to just, one side. And I don't want that to be happening. That's going to be really annoying when we're placing the screens for the 530 and the 430 here. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay, that's the first one. And there's one other one where we want to make sure the taskbar is automatically hidden. And so to make sure that's on the correct setting, I'm going to click on personalization, and I'm going to click on taskbar. And then I'm going to click on taskbar behaviors. So I'm going to expand that. And right here where it says automatically hide the taskbar, you want to make sure that's selected. That's going to make sure that as you scroll over to your screen that you're working on here, like on the 530 or the 430, then it's not going to populate that taskbar. It's always been on for me, but it could be a different default setting for you. Okay, already moving on to step 4, which is to install the Real Sim Gear plugin in order to make the hardware work. So for that, it's super easy. We're just gonna head over to realsimgear.com and we're gonna click on support right here. That's gonna bring us to this page. Now we're gonna click on downloads, and then we're gonna click on downloads for X-Plane. And then I'm gonna click this first one, X-Plane 11/12 plugin for Windows. So probably in the top right or the bottom left, depending on which Windows you have, you're gonna click on this folder here so you can open it up inside of your file explorer. Now I'm gonna go ahead and run this. So I'm just gonna double click on it. It'll populate a screen that you can't see. The screen recording never picks this up, but it says, do you want to allow this app to make changes? You're just gonna click yes. And now we're gonna go through the prompts together. So I'm gonna click next. I'm gonna click I agree. And so this is where you're gonna select which hardware that you have. And so I'm working with a 430 and a 530 right now. And I'm also working with the GMA350 audio panel. And then so in that case, I'm also gonna select all other Real Sim Gear hardware. That's gonna download all the plugins that I need for all 3 of these. So once those are selected, I'm gonna click next. Now it's going to choose your base folder. If you're working with X-Plane 11, this will probably auto-populate at 11, but if you have 12, then it'll populate as your base folder for X-Plane 12. So that is where I want to place this. I'm going to click install. Just takes a couple seconds to install. And so this pop-up, you don't really have to worry about right now. Reality XP is something that we're going to cover in the next video. And that's this $35 software. So you can get the full menu systems out of the 430 and the 530. That way it's apples to apples when you're going from sim to the real airplane. So that is really worth it, but it's kind of a complicated process to set up. So I'm just gonna show you in the next video. So go ahead and just click yes for now, doesn't matter. And then I'm gonna click finish. Okay, now that we have installed the Real Sim Gear plugin, it's time for step 5, which is to load up X-Plane and change our graphic settings. So I'm just gonna click on my shortcut right here for X-Plane, and I'm gonna let that load. Okay, so when you first load up X-Plane, you're gonna wanna come over to this settings tab right here, and then we're gonna click on this graphics tab right here. Now, as we scroll down, if you're using X-Plane 11, you're gonna have to scroll all the way to the bottom, and then there's gonna be another scroll bar that pulls up on the bottom there. So you can scroll to the right so you can see these other monitors like this monitor 3 and 4. By the way, the numbers of the monitors are gonna be different from what Windows says it is. X-Plane just kind of makes up their own here. So try not to get confused there. The placement is gonna be pretty much the same though. Now X-Plane 12 has made this a lot easier where it's a lot smaller here. And so now I can just click on these. I don't have to just drag this scroll bar everywhere. So anyway, right here, monitor 3 is my 530. I remember that. So I'm going to click that one and it says unused. I want to change that to 2D panel only. And then I'm going to click monitor 4. That one's also unused. And I'm going to also change that to 2D panel only. Now this is where you can change. Let's say I can make my monitor 2 an instructor station where it's just always having my map in front of me. So why don't we do that? And then I'm going to leave my monitor 1 up here to the left unused. And then my main monitor is my full screen sim, and I'm going to keep that the same. So I'll click done. Okay, and now finally we can go ahead and click on new flight to load into X-Plane and work on step 6, which is to drag the GNS530 or 430 screens over to the RealSim Gear hardware. So your X-Plane will probably default to this stock Cessna Skyhawk right here. Now the one I'm gonna click on is actually this 172 November model with this same stack here, this Garmin 530, 430, and 350, and it also is carbureted rather than fuel injected. This is the same airplane that we use inside of our course, Flight Sim Pro, which is where we teach you how to use your flight simulator to prepare for real world flight training. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but this is the airplane I'm gonna select. We're gonna fly out of Montgomery Field like we do in the course as well. I like flying out of spot GA6, that's where I fly out of in real life. So this area of Executive Air Park, and I'll click confirm. Weather's clear, I'm flying in the daytime, I'll click start flight. Okay, so here we are. We've loaded up into X-Plane and it's time to drag the screens over for the 530 and the 430 so we can actually see the display on these avionics. And so it is really easy. I'm just gonna kind of zoom over here and then I'm gonna go ahead and click on the 530 first, since I'm gonna do that first. That's gonna populate this screen. Now I don't wanna just drag this straight over. I want to first populate the white bar on this thing so I can easily manipulate it. And so if I hover my mouse over the very top right here, you're gonna see these two little squares pop up. So I'm gonna click on those squares. That's gonna populate the white bar. And now essentially what I need to do is drag this over to the 530 and I need to size it in the appropriate way that the white bar is hidden. And so how I like to do that is I like to expand it widthwise, and then I'll go ahead and make it a little bit smaller so it's easier to work with. Okay, and now that I have this all expanded out and skinny, I'm going to push it over in the direction where I have my 530 and my 430. So this is the 530 screen, so I'm gonna push it over and then I'm going to line up the bottom right corner here, and once it's all lined up, then I'll grab the top over here, make sure it's still on the full screen. So if you need to make it a little wider, you can. Make sure it's still on your full screen simulator side so we can hide the white bar. And I'm gonna drag from my main monitor upwards, and that's going to expand it out. And I'm gonna keep pushing up until I no longer see the white bar on the 530. You might have to duck down here until that totally disappears. There you go, bang. Okay, now I'm going to scroll this over until it's completely on the 530. Okay, now I have the 530 loaded onto the RealSim Gear hardware and there's no white bar showing. So I'm gonna repeat that process and do it for the 430 as well. So I'll click on the 430, I'll drag it over here. I'll click on the little white squares to make that white bar populate. I'm gonna scroll it out, make it skinny, make it super long since I have to go across the entire 530 screen in order to get to the 430. So I gotta really expand this thing out. And then now that it's on the 430 screen, let's see, it just takes a little bit of finessing here. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna expand it upward till I no longer see the white bar. Okay, that looks good. And now I'll scroll this all the way over until I can't see it on the 530 screen anymore. And it looks like it's perfectly aligned just like that. Okay, awesome. Now that I have these screens on each piece of RealSim Gear hardware, it's time for step 7, which is to load up the RealSim Gear device interface and change COM1 or COM2 to make sure that's on the correct piece of hardware. I'll show you what I mean. So if I go up to the top left here, I just hover my mouse at the top, you're gonna see these menus populate. I'm gonna click on plugins. I'm gonna scroll down to RealSim Gear device interface, and I'm gonna come over carefully and click connected hardware. And that's gonna show you every piece of RealSim Gear hardware that you have hooked up right now. And so what I wanna do is I want to make sure that these things are working properly. And so if I move this knob right here, this big knob on the 530, I should be changing what's highlighted in this square right here, which is my radio frequencies. And so watch as I twist this, see how it's twisting up the 430? It's actually manipulating this screen rather than this screen. So that's a super easy fix. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this COM1, COM2 right here for in this device type category. Essentially what it's thinking is that the 530 should be in COM2 and the 430 should be COM1, but I want COM1 to be on top and COM2 to be on bottom. So I'm gonna click COM1 for the 530, and then I'm gonna click COM2 for the 430. And now as I manipulate the knob here, look, it's changing the 530 for me. So now I could switch it over to something like the Montgomery ATIS, which is 126.9, and I can hit this swap button and listen to the ATIS frequency. However, I'm actually listening to and talking to on COM 2 right now, and so I need to swap this over to COM 1. And without having to go on the simulator here and click on COM 1 right here, I can just click on this bottom button right here where it says mic 1, and that's going to swap me over, and that's going to allow me to listen to Montgomery's ATIS. Okay, that is it for setting up your 430 and your 530. If you do want those full menu systems out of the 430 and the 530 for Reality XP, so it's going apples to apples from your sim to the real airplane, then go ahead and click on this link right here. This is going to take you to our Reality XP video. But before you go, if you want to learn more about how to use your flight sim to prepare for real world flight training, check out our online course called Flight Sim Pro. Inside the course, we teach you how to use your flight simulator to prepare for your private pilot certificate, and depending on when you're watching this, your instrument rating. We show you how to use your checklist to start, taxi, take off, level off, descend, land, everything that I would teach one of my students, as I'm a CFII with over 3,000 flight hours, and I've jam-packed this course with all of the pro tips that I've learned over the last 7 years of flying, which I know will save you the headache that I had to go through in my flight training to learn it all. If you want a sneak peek inside the course, click the link below to watch our video on how to start a Cessna 172, or head over to flightsimpro.com to learn more. But that does wrap up this video. Go ahead and email us at support@realsimgear.com if you do have any further questions. That's all for now, though. Let us know if you need anything else, and we'll catch you in the next one. See ya.